Hey everyone, welcome to the 2023 garden tour. Let's check it out. This area is where we started with gardening back in 2020. This is right here is the area where we put the original kind of no-dig garden area. And since then, we've sort of turned it into two separate pads because there was no flat ground here. And so it made it really difficult to do the kind of things we wanted to do. And I'm my own worst enemy in the sense that I kind of like doing things like I see them in my brain, and which usually involves a whole bunch of work and all those sorts of things. But we have a big vision for what this ultimately is going to look like, and it's getting there, which is kind of exciting. So there's two separate pads. This one is pretty much like it's going to be, except for the fence that's ultimately going around it. And this is the kind of ramp and up to the upper pad, which ultimately is going to look like the bottom one with all the raised beds and all that stuff. And you can see everything's a work in progress, and there's someplace always that's a mess. But up here, we did a whole bunch of flowers this year, which really adds, in my mind, to the enjoyment of the vegetable garden, is to have all the flowers mixed in. They also work as companion plants and draw a lot of the bugs, like the zinnias. Is that what these are? Yeah. The zinnias, they are a magnet for the Japanese beetles, so it helps keep the Japanese beetles off of some of the other stuff. But these beds will ultimately be coming out, and this whole area will be laid out in the tall raised beds and things. And over here, in this spot where we come down from the house down into the garden area in this upper pad, that's where the potting shed will be and that sort of stuff. Waters run up here, powers run up here for that kind of stuff. And I'm really excited that we got these borage to grow this year, because the bees absolutely go bananas over them, which is kind of cool to see. I've tried every single year to grow these and never was able to, so that they've gone so crazy is really kind of cool. So that's the upper pad area, and I have more flowers over here. Our okra is coming along slowly. It likes the heat and stuff a lot better than some of the other stuff, so it'll come on strong here in the next couple months. And more borage. It's taking its sweet time. More flowers. Compost bins are over there. I'm not very good at composting, so add that into one of the garden fail videos. So anyway, this is the upper pad, and down here is the lower pad. All this, we've leveled all this, and there's drainage out here because I could never get this to dry out. But this, all the stone and all that, is all what this will ultimately be, with pavers down through here for this ramp that connects into some cool gates up there, and then down with the entrance here. So turning right into the bottom pad down here between raised beds, more flowers mixed in over here with our asparagus patch through here. It's kind of cool to, we were able to grow this from seed, so it takes 3 years before you can really start harvesting, so that the crowns have a chance to develop. So next spring, we will get a whole bunch, probably this whole spring up into May, we'll be able to have fresh asparagus, which is pretty rad. Here's the kind of the main tomato crop. This is a whole bed full of Early Girls and Better Boys, which are hybrid varieties, which is why everybody's commenting on how perfect they are, and they are. They're perfectly formed and bright red when they're fully ripe, and I guess that's what happens when you have perfectly hybrid tomatoes. Here, the extra bunch of tomatoes, these are all Romas. This bed and that bed Those are, I have Amish paste on the far side. And these all of these tomatoes, a whole bunch of them, the vast majority of them will end up being used for sauce, stuff like that. So this is bed past that. Cucumbers coming on strong. I have some arugula that's on its last leg. A whole bunch of carrots. And cucumbers going crazy trying to take over the carrots here. We got to do something about that. Second planting of lettuce that's about done. Once it starts getting hot, it wants to bolt. So then we have more, let's see, I think those, I have some more, maybe more lettuce right there. Cucumbers, finish this side. And then back over here on the back side of the asparagus is more beautiful flowers and a whole bunch of onion. And then some more cherry tomatoes over here, and a whole bunch more flowers. And rhubarb that I don't know what to do with, it just bolts all the time. And then we have mustard greens that are about ready to be done for the time. And here's, see, rhubarb's another one that the Japanese beetles love. So we're able to come by in the afternoon or evening, first thing in the morning, and pull all these off and throw them in a bucket of soapy water and keep them from making more babies. The herb corner over here, got a bunch of dill and rosemary and stuff, basil back there. These are June-bearing strawberries. We pulled a bunch of strawberries off this year, and this is the brand new planting down through here of all the ever-bearing strawberries. We won't get anything from them this year. And we planted, which is why we planted these enormous sunflowers here, because ideally these guys need more sun than what they get under these sunflowers, but it's not a big deal. We'll do something different next year. And then through this overhang here, this is another something I felt really excited about. I was able to grow celery this year, and have never been able to do that. And they've just never been successful. They always rotted and things like that. So more cucumbers. Cucumber there. I got a cucumber pretty close to harvest right there, which is pretty awesome because that's kind of the last item before we can have a salad that's 100% out of the garden. So more Japanese beetles there again on the zinnias. So I mean, the zinnias and the rhubarb make for great attractors. Yeah, so we have some. There's our celery there. This whole bank of celery here. I got some wee peas. Finishing those up. Another big success this year is this whole half bed of beets. I've never been able to grow big, nice, full-size beets, and these did great this year, which is pretty awesome. They're all kind of coming up and popping up. I'll be ready to harvest here pretty soon. And a whole nother bunch of onions here. We all did these from seed, so which is also kind of cool. We try to do everything from seed that we can, and that's a fantastic weed. Look. But generally, this is kind of what everything's going to look like with the stone. And it's really, I thought it was going to be hassle, but it's nice. I can blow it with the blower. It's easy to rake up when we do pruning and stuff like that. It's a fantastic under a foot and all that stuff. So, and this is our hinged hoop house that we use for our brassicas because of the little white butterflies that lay their eggs. And so this has been covered and stays covered with this netting to keep it's just insect exclusion netting, and it just keeps them out, keeps them from laying eggs so that we don't have a whole bunch of caterpillars eating things up. And a whole bunch of these are about ready to harvest, so anybody wants some cabbage, let us know. All right. So from here, you can see, kind of get a point of reference. Here's our shop building, and then over to over here is the high tunnel. So the high tunnel, we ended up doing that because where we are in Zone 7B, we have mild enough winters that with a covered structure, you can grow some stuff, pretty much through the winter, stuff that's cold hardy. So things like carrots and all kinds of root vegetables can be grown over the winter time. And you really and brassicas, yeah, as well. So cabbage and cauliflower and broccoli and Brussels sprouts and all that stuff can be done over the winter. And so we put this, kind of small hoop house up, or high tunnel up, so that we had the option for doing that over the winter time. The first year we did a winter garden, it was the best production of a whole bunch of stuff that we'd ever done. And so, but it was a hassle to deal with. And so we figured we could use the high tunnel for winter stuff. And also we closed this in such a way that it has insect exclusion netting all the way around, which isn't how people necessarily always do it, because the downside is pollinators can't get in. So when the squash and stuff that we put in here had to self-pollinate or hand pollinate, which hasn't been terrible, but it hasn't been the most convenient thing in the world. But we had such a terrible time with squash bugs historically that we decided to try it in here for this first year. So what we did in here in the summertime is we put our heirloom tomatoes in here because they're a little bit more susceptible to disease, and we put our bush beans in here, which did just phenomenal. So here's the layout of the high tunnel. So over here on the left-hand side, boy, it's plenty warmer here today. And also, we did put the 40% shade cloth on here, which makes a gigantic difference in terms of just it being unbearably hot. So these are all zucchini. So this does not work in the high tunnel. This is all beautiful eggplant, 2 different varieties of eggplant, and I've done the pollination on those, and I can't get any eggplant to take. So we won't try that in the high tunnel anymore. Then here is the 2 different varieties of summer squash. Again, same thing, hand pollinating all of this, which I just did these yesterday. We had some peppers that we did a variety pack of, I just grabbed them off the shelf of Lowe's or something, and they were just a variety pack of hot peppers, and I don't know what any of these are. So then the bell peppers have done fantastic in here. This cool purple variety right here. Again, more right here. So these pepper plants have done fantastic in the high tunnel. Again, here, I mean, loads and loads and loads of good peppers. So here's all of our heirloom tomatoes. There's black Krim, Cherokee purple, and Brandywine in here. And I did want to point out that I've set up all of this with the next 25 years in mind. So all of this has this micro irrigation. I'll talk about in some other video about why we did the irrigation and why we did it, or how we did it. But this micro irrigation has worked great. And also these beds, as you might recognize, are pretty tall. But the idea is that as we get older and we want to continue gardening, we don't want to have to be down on the ground. And with these being these are actually taller even than the other ones, but between 18 and 24 inches tall.
Perfect sitting height.
It makes it easy to just sit down and reach the center of the beds from either side, and it's going to make continuing on when we're way older a little bit easier. So, all right, that's the high tunnel. So the food forest is, if any of you are familiar with Justin Rhoads' different types of gardens, we sort of have done really the 3 different types that he talks about with the raised bed gardens, and then what he calls the bulletproof garden, which is really just taking an area, cover it with a deep layer of mulch, and then planting into the dirt under there while the decomposition of the wood chips end up building soil. This property had all the topsoil stripped off of it before we bought it. And so this whole area, we're just really trying to rebuild the soil, and doing that through this kind of bulletproof garden approach. Again, this whole thing does have the same kind of micro irrigation, and with the waters over there, these are all blueberries here. The grapes are doing well this year. The Japanese beetles like the grapes too, which is kind of just part of the game, I guess. Multiple kinds of grapes. We've got Concord grapes, we have Muscadine, and these are both, actually not Concord, these are both Niagaras. And we have a ton of wild blackberry that we've been cultivating for the last couple years. We already harvested, I don't know, probably 2 gallons maybe at the first go, and then we're ready to pick again. As you can see, they're just loaded with blackberries. Some of them are really, really big, but again, they're all wild. Here is our cultivated raspberries. They've gone bananas and have spread, and we're really excited about having an increased patch of that. And then down here, there's all manner of fruit trees. There's multiple cherry trees, which actually we've had a terrible time with them. They just don't really like our environment, I guess. And apple trees, we have a persimmon, and let's see, that's a plum tree, that's a peach tree, and down on the other side we have some other apples, some more pears, and I think, and one more plum. And down at the end, at the bottom, there's the fig. We also have planted over here watermelon, so a little sprawl over in this area. Last year, they did fantastic over here, but about the time they got up and ready to harvest, the deer decided they really like watermelon, which is how we ended up doing this tape solar fence all the way around the thing. Another crop that I'm really excited about how they're doing this year, this is our potatoes. Multiple different varieties of potatoes. There's a Yukon Golden here, there's Pontiac Red, and then down here there's some more little wee gold potatoes. But we're growing these in kind of the other, I guess the third row crop way that Justin Rhoads talked about. And actually these are planted, these potatoes are planted using a method where basically you just plant on top of compost and then just continue to mound with straw. So this needs another round of straw here pretty quick. But I'm just really excited about how well the potatoes have done. Here's our corn. It's 2 different varieties here. There's Ambrosia corn and a Silver Queen. And so here, as you can see, that's a good spot to see right here. I love gardening. I cannot stand weeding. As an artist and someone who likes creativity, I like creating all these things. I despise having to constantly come around and deal with stuff like this. And so at every opportunity that we can do to create situations where you don't have to weed, that's kind of our approach to all this, which is why all this fabric is down. Ultimately, these will be 2 other rows of corn, maybe later in the year, and down there will be the other patch we'll rotate crops and things like that. But this is kind of the row crop area. The cool part out here is we had a pile of watermelon that the deer had eaten up, and we just left them out here. And so now we have a handful of watermelon plants that I don't know what they'll come up with, because you never know.
I don't know if we're gonna get big ones or the sugar ones.
But yeah, so yeah, that's our volunteer watermelon.
None of our cantaloupe came up, but we do have butternut squash.
Yep. So we had cantaloupe down here that again just didn't do well. We had it last year that didn't really do well either. So one more thing to add to the list to sort out, but there's one lone butternut squash
Our other one's dying.
here that we'll see if he ends up doing anything. But I think that's it. There's, of course, the creek is down here. One day I'd love to have it set up where solar power ran a pump to water everything from the creek. That would be amazing. And that's where the high tunnel sits right there. And the shop where our seed starting stuff is and all that. And there's the raised bed garden area, and there's the house. All right, so that's the garden, and as it is here in, what is it, late June?
June 28th.
June 28th, 2023. So hope you enjoyed seeing that. Don't forget about our new page, the Stock Homestead, and also the channel. Obviously, if you're watching this, you're going to be on the YouTube channel anyway. Hope you'll join us, and hope you enjoyed seeing everything. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.